Hi everyone, we are RainbowBird Chirps, a podcast from the RainbowBird Student Society in Hong Kong University of Science and Technology that advocates for diversity and inclusion, particularly the LGBTQ plus community. Hi everyone, I'm Telia, the Executive Content Manager of the Student Society, and I'm joined with...
Hi, I'm Joey. I'm also a part of the content making subcommittee, but I'm also a part of the event organizing subcommittee.
Hi, I'm Snow, and I'm also a subcom member and mainly doing event organizations.
Yay! So welcome for our first ever podcast episode as we navigate these, rather complex narratives regarding this community and unpacking the multifaceted layers of Disney villains and the LGBTQ plus representation in this enchanting world of animated story. And yes, that is the topic we're going to talk about today.
Disney villains.
Yes. In this realm of modern entertainment, Disney movies have undeniably wielded significant influence, shaping the landscape of children's media worldwide. These tales not only entertain, but also serve as mirrors reflecting societal values, norms, and evolving perspectives. This influence extends to the portrayal of characters, notably the iconic Disney villains, who often embody traits or characteristics aligning with aspects traditionally associated with the LGBTQ community. And this subtle subtext raises intriguing questions about representation, identity, and the blurred lines between heroism and villainy in Disney's narrative tapestry. And as we journey through the frames of Disney history, undeniably there has been an increase in diversity of characters, including the exploration of various cultures and sexualities. However, a critical question arises. Are these representations accurately reflecting the LGBTQ plus community, or do they tread the fine line between appropriate depiction and potentially disrespectful stereotypes? Furthermore, could these character nuances serve as a strategic tool wielded by Disney within the realm of capitalism, catering to a diverse audience while navigating commercial imperatives? So, yes, that's basically the introduction of our episode today. And because it's late September going to October, so it's also Halloween season, I guess. So I feel like this is a perfect topic to kick off our podcast. So first, perhaps let's just have a little discussion of who is our favorite Disney villains. So Snow, do you want to go first?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I actually don't really have a favorite, but I think Scar from The Lion King is absolutely one of the best characters. Best villains here. And especially because his villain theme, be prepared.
Oh, yeah.
Is so good. I don't know how to explain it. It's just so good. And I think I really like the recent live action from Cruella.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
The costumes.
Yeah.
Girl power.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, totally. My favorite is also Scar from The Lion King, the 1994 one. And also Be Prepared, because I was a girl's guide. And I realized Be Prepared is also the motto for Girls Guide in Hong Kong. And how did it even lose? He has so many hyena minions and he is prepared. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of has commented how Scar is queer-coded. I would say we will talk about this more in detail, but particularly how his action is more, charismatic and he has a slender physique, especially compared with Simba. The fight scene, you can kind of clearly see there's more, I guess, curvy features when the animators draw him. and also like more exaggerated facial features with like very dark eyeliners. So yeah, Scar is definitely one of my favorites, and also Ursula from the 1980s Little Mermaid. I feel like, I don't see her as a villain. I think she's just a great businesswoman. It's not really her problem because Ariel just didn't read the terms and conditions agreement.
If you're gonna sign your life away, you have to read the terms and conditions.
Exactly. It's a great lesson for the children to learn.
Oh God, yeah. For a 16-year-old.
I'm just looking at the live action Ursula, and that's actually a pretty character, I would say.
Nice. Oh, I have not seen the live action yet, but I mean, I like the classics more, I would say. And I feel like Ursula is like a sassy queen, and like she like shakes her boobs in the song. Yeah, and like in fact, she's based on the drag queen Divine from the 1970s. So like, going back to our theme. And yeah, Joey, what did you want to say?
Oh yeah, honestly, I also really like Ursula, especially I think it's kind of under talked by how terrifying she is, even when she like transformed into a normal human being. Like she is disguised as Vanessa, and then even then, it's clear that her villainy would be I guess transcribed it through her like eye makeup and like general appearance. And we will touch upon this later, but there's like a very distinct difference between her and Ariel, even both of them are like in a human form. It's very clear for the audience to tell like which one of them are morally good based on their appearance itself. But also I really love Maleficent, especially like in the animated version, she is absolutely terrifying because of her whole aura and physique is just magnitudely just overwhelming, and it's very otherworldly, and she's like unhuman like. But I like the live action of Maleficent, I think, and this is a really good live action in my opinion, because they clearly redempted her, or sort of tried to make an alternative version of Maleficent through I think relating her evil origin through like sexual trauma by like the king of the Sleeping Beauty universe. So I think in that live action she's very much relatable and empathetic to the audience. So I think that is what attracts me to her as like a villain anti-hero character.
Whoa.
Yeah, Maleficent is so cool in the live action. I really like the movies, but I can't really remember the plot anymore. It's been a while since I watched it.
Yeah. Wow, I love your points on how, makeup and portrayal of these characters in terms of physical appearance-wise, especially onto, Disney female villains, can, have such a, impact on not just, what we're talking about, but also about morals and standards, and how Disney tries to tell you that to the audience.
Oh yeah, and also I was recently introduced to Hades by Snow. We all watched like a funny compilation of Hades being sassy. And I think that also sparked my new love for Hades.
Yeah, totally agree. I think he's giving this modern gay best friend vibe, and like he was telling Meg that, it's just a guy, it's not really worth your time.
That clip just recently went viral on Instagram. That's how I got introduced to Hades too.
We just had a discussion on and shared about who our favorite Disney villains are, and we also touched a little bit upon the concept of queer coding. So why are they queer, basically? And essentially, the entire thing started with the Hays Code, which is officially known as the Motion Picture Production Code, and it was a set of industry guidelines for the self-censorship of content in Hollywood films. And it was named after Will H. Hayes, who was the president of the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America from 1922 to 1945. So
Interesting.
It's like fun facts about the code.
Fun.
And the code was adopted in 1930 and strictly enforced from 1934 to 1968. This code outlined what was considered morally acceptable and unacceptable in films to avoid government censorship. And the Hays Code emerged in response to scandals in Hollywood during the 1920s, including like cases of murder and rape, and also during the Great Depression. Hollywood includes much like sex and violent scenes to attract audiences and make them spend money on, films and movies. So this really made the public feel like Hollywood and the U.S. film industry, has been kind of morally questionable. So what specifically, relates to the LGBTQ plus representation on film is that this code includes strict rules against depicting sexual perversion, which was like a euphemism for homosexuality. And as a result, filmmakers resorted to queer coding. Like they subtly imply a character's queerness through their mannerisms, speech, and appearance without explicitly stating it. Although the enforcement of Hays Code officially ended in 1968, it has significant influence after that. So, for example, just now, a lot of the characters we mentioned that are our favorite Disney villains, they're producing like the Disney Renaissance era. So it's like 1980s to 1990s. So even after the Hays Code. And Disney has often been quite conservative with its approach to content because they try to aim to maintain a family-friendly image. And I guess many parents still hold the mindset of believing homosexuality is unusual or not normal. And this conservatism means that even after the Hays Code ended, Disney continued to use subtle methods like queer coding to imply certain traits without being explicit. So a lot of these Disney villains characters, we think they're gay, but like they're not in the sexuality aspect. Not that they have like a partner of the same sex, but it's usually just some behavior or mannerisms that are stereotypically associated with the LGBTQ plus community. So yeah, for example, like the Disney Renaissance era characters like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast, Jafar from Aladdin, Scar from Lion King, and Hades from Hercules. These iconic characters and villains are all made during their era. And then, Joey made a really good point about what the scene is like for the days before the Hays Code. What's the representation like for the LGBTQ plus community? And it's also very subtle, especially in Hollywood and U.S. films. But, historians and film professors did notice that it was much more open in European films. For example, there is a 1919 German film called Different from Others. And then it was also done through gender coding. So there would be swishy, effeminate men and butch women in Hollywood films that were basically queer coded. And so that's a chunk of history stuff. And
but that's so interesting.
So in a way, could it be that actually this Hays Code has could I say enhanced the stereotype for queer people, maybe? Because they're only showing the stereotypical things to imply it in films or movie shows, and people are only exposed to that and think that maybe queer people are just like that. But in real life, maybe that's not the case. I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like a lot of media has quite a lot of power because like young people see themselves in them, and I feel like these stereotypes and norms established during the Hays Code era has quite a lasting impact on societal perceptions. And also like if for example in villains, people associate them with like morally wrong characters and stuff, so they're kind of like a signal to like otherness or deviance, and a lot of the behaviors or appearances associated with them, not necessarily with their actions, because like some villains are just purely mean in what they do, but even their appearances can be negatively associated as well.
Yeah.
I was thinking like Disney villains. If like people love Disney villains, and then I think they aren't really portrayed as very evil or morally bad. I suppose they just like they're quote unquote evil, but they're not like actually in real life bad like that. Maybe is that how people feel? I don't really know. It's still a likable character.
Yeah, I feel like they are portrayed as straightly evil, especially in early days. Like, for example, Maleficent is very much just the pinnacle of evil. And, like, Scar, he, like, usurp his role and, like, kill his brother. Spoiler alert. But, so, yeah, that's also, pretty evil by moral standard. But then I think the reason why people has, like, take a liking to them is that they're fleshy characters by themselves. Like, they have their own motivations and they have flaws. And this is sort of unlike to a lot of the flawless, perfect protagonists at the time. So
That makes
maybe
sense.
that was what made them more relatable in a way. But speaking of which, I'm just gonna pick out some like Disney villains from like some of the old classics movie and like sort of talk about the general appearance of them and how they might contribute to this like queer stereotypes. So, for example, I don't know if you have noticed, but I think a lot of the female Disney villains, like Yzma from
The Emperor's New Groove.
yeah, the Emperor's New Groove, and then Maleficent, Ursula, what else?
The Evil Queen.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the Evil
Evil
Queen.
Queen.
Oh, and the stepmom of
Oh,
Cinderella.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on and so forth. You can see comparatively to the protagonists of the film, they're relatively old, and this could be seen as a threat to the reproductive ability of the character. So this further sways the character away from the male gaze, even though they might be, very attractive in a way, wearing like sort of low cut dress and like heavy makeup. But then this sexualization is actually not really there to appeal to the male gaze, as the male gaze I guess ideal femininity is that of a more natural one, as observed in like Ariel, Cinderella, Snow White. They're just like flawlessly perfect without trying.
Yeah.
And just the contrast between the, I guess, female protagonist and the female villain, you can see how this is utilized to villainize the character.
I see.
And then I think makeup is also very much apparent in both male and female villains. So in the female villains, as mentioned, the heavy makeup is sort of like masculinizing them. So they have like a higher cheekbone and sort of like heavy eyeshadows, which, is contrasting to the neutral, I guess, makeup of the protagonists, of the princesses. But then, as like Telia and Snow mentioned, the male villains like Hades or like Scar, they have more effeminate makeup. So they would have, like a curved back for appearance, but then also, longer eyelashes, like rosy cheek eyeliners, which also contribute, I guess, sort of implied to the fact that these men are sort of
They slay.
associated. Yes, they do slay. Associated with the slaves
Yeah.
and the gays.
Okay.
Yes, that's actually an incredible point, because you can see how, LGBTQ plus representation and stereotypes linking with the male gaze and what is considered beautiful and expectations of, parents under the world of patriarchy, basically. For example, like, all of these female villains, they kind of just basically are considered like, not the pretty women, especially the reproduction point. I think that's so perfect. Like, they're actually all old villains. Like,
they're practically made to not be attracted by males.
Yeah,
exactly. And they're all like, some of them already have kids, like the stepmom of Cinderella.
Yeah, so it makes them less appealing in the male gaze. Like, they're not youthful anymore. And youthful is such a, I think it's so important when it comes to the stereotypical definition of what beauty is for women under the male gaze. So I think that's very interesting, and I feel like, even before the queer coding and also gender coding, I think that's also an important part of what makes these Disney villains gay, because it's basically them kind of having these features that are stereotypically not associated with their gender, basically, and the kind of difference to and deviation to societal norms of how you should appear, how you should dress, is what makes them considered or queer coded. And I think that's just like, a very interesting way which people to this day still stereotypically associate certain behaviors or appearances for people in the LGBTQ plus community. And I think, Joey, you made a really, really cool point to think about this.
Yeah. Thank you.
You made a lot of very cool points.
Yes, but then, so that I established why, some of the villains might be coded queer. But then why are, the modern days audiences, especially the LGBTQ community, has started to reclaim the queer coded Disney villains, which were, supposed to be a jab to the community? Why are we reclaiming it? So I think, although it was out of restriction that only Disney villains were the only queer representation that we had in children media for a long, long time, and they're often portrayed in a negative light and contribute to nothing more but to the stereotype of drag queens, gays, lesbians, and many more. The common goal of Disney villains often seems to be against the culturally ingrained idea of heterosexual, patriarchal, happily ever after, because a lot of the times the villain is just like stopping the protagonist princess from marrying like a random guy / prince.
Please, he's just a guy.
That should be said more. But so this common rebellion against the cultural expectation and also the drag quality of the villain's appearance, like a lot of them speak their lines with a sort of theatrical nature, and this is like seen the independence of the gender of the character, often make the villain appealing to the community. So this is what inspired the reclamation in modern days. And of course there's a lot of animators, especially I think the animator for The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. He is an openly gay man, and he, I guess, was not able to finish Beauty and the Beast because of AIDS. So I think a lot of closeted animators would maybe sort of make these villainous character portrayed in like a more fun way in order to sort of reclaim their own identity and be in control of them. What do you think?
I think it's cool. It's like, I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's also, it had a good outcome, I guess.
Yeah, it's like they had to work within the system to like sliver through like a glimpse of representation.
Yeah, but now we have very fun Disney villains, which is awesome, I think.
Yeah. I guess through reclamation, we can see how queer representation is portrayed nowadays. So nowadays, the villain of Disney films are less queer coded, but instead the protagonist is sort of queer coded in a way. and I'll be discussing this on about on the queer positive aspects of the protagonist. I will discuss this aspect using the film Frozen, which is one of my most watched Disney film as a kid. I think I've watched this film like many times. I think every time when I'm on a plane, I'll put this movie on. But Elsa, I don't know if you guys know this, but during development, she was supposed to be a villain, but she was later morphed into an anti-hero. So I think she's very much queer-coded, and I think a lot of the community would agree. They have a headcanon of her as a lesbian. But
yeah, I've seen that, definitely.
Yeah, especially in Frozen 2. But it's notable to note that the only like actual villain character in the first movie was Hans, and his whole deal was him pursuing to get married to Anna and hence get her inheritance. And this so his presence sort of represent a strong like heterosexuality and patriarchy, you know. And this is sort of like self-referential in the song Love is an Open Door. So Hans said, "Can I say something crazy? Will you marry me?" And Anna replied, "Can I say something even crazier?" Yes. So the fact that they refer this as crazy is Disney sort of like referring to their old past films, seeing how, you know, the princess and the prince get married after like one day meeting each other.
Snow White, feel like.
Exactly. And Cinderella.
Oh yeah.
And Sleeping Beauty. But yeah, Disney is very much like conscious of this trope, and they're trying to further like revert it. And this is further seen in the song Let It Go. So I encourage you to pull up the song lyrics, but I'm just gonna describe some of the song. So I think one of the notable lines is, "Don't let them in, don't let them see. Be the good girl you always have to be. Conceal, don't feel. Don't let them know." Now, conceal, don't feel is a rhetoric often used against the LGBTQ community, as seen as don't ask, don't tell policy. You know, don't let them know. So Elsa, in this case, she is seen as deviant because of her ice power, and which elicit fear in people. I think there's a line about, "Oh, she's a witch."
Oh yeah, that's actually true.
Yeah, and this is like almost analogical to the queer community being seen as sexual and gender deviant by the act of coming out. So we also have to bear the shame of keeping our identity secret. So, you know, Elsa very much reflect this, but with just, you know, gayness being replaced by ice power, which is that different? I don't know. I feel like I have ice power sometimes. But yeah.
I wish I had ice powers.
If you believe, you will.
Damn.
But then, yeah, this is very much similar to the phase that society dictates queer you follow. You know, do not feel same-sex attraction. If you feel it, conceal it. But this is not, you know, entirely depressing. As Elsa reached to the top of the mountain, she uses her power to create her ice castle as she sings the line, "Here I stand and here I'll stay." So I feel like this is very much echoing the school of thought in the queer theory. So rather than assimilating in the patriarchal heteronormative society, we should instead emancipate from this structure of society and establish a new queer community that should be aiming for like everyone be able to live freely as they want. So it's forging a new queer utopia. And I guess she isn't exactly the hero here, because she did, you know, by accident or not, her position was like seen as a danger to Arendelle and also Anna. But through the vulnerability displayed, she is made a very empathetic character / anti-hero. And then the whole movie is subverting the idea of true love. So even though Anna had a real love interest, Kristoff, in the movie, the one true love kiss in the end that like sort of dissolved the ice power that Elsa did on Anna was neither, you know, the kiss from Hans the villain nor the kiss from Kristoff the heterosexual love interest, but it's instead Anna's sister Elsa. So this sways the message further away from like Disney conventional heterosexual love, and instead celebrating more of a familial love.
And that's basically the whole twist. Like, first of all, I think most people who watched Frozen for the first time thought that the true love's kiss was going to be from Kristoff. Absolutely.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, me too. And then it was, is it shocking? It's just very touching to see that in Frozen, that the twist was like that. It's what made it great, probably. One of the biggest reasons that made it so nice, so good.
Yeah, and I feel like I think that was like a really excellent analysis. Like, I think it can definitely be, you know, just like a children's favorite movie, and it was also my favorite movie when I was in primary school. But definitely you can, you know, see about it in this particular perspective, and like I guess our queer community can also like claim this Disney story. And I feel like that's the beauty of these, is that I think a lot of recent ones, or a lot of movies that are very direct about like the LGBTQ plus subtext, but then it makes you feel very forced, and it's like not genuine at all. But then for this one, you know, like the community can have so much of their like canon stories, and like, you know, also use their own interpretation to understand the songs, Let It Go. And I think that's like really interesting, and that's really beautiful as well. And I think that it's like things like this that are very universal topics and themes, and then doesn't really have that much like, you know, stereotype of any community. And I feel like Disney should definitely make movies like this more. Yeah.
They don't do that anymore.
I mean, I agree with your point, but I also think it's important for there to have like a actual canon LGBTQ character that, you know, might not fit into stereotype, but, you know, like the fact that they are queer has to be canon. And, you know, the storyline doesn't have to be, you know, coincide with their identity. It could be just be like a tangential part of their identity, but it would still be, you know, great to see an actual good story instead of a forced one. Like an actual good LGBTQ queer story is being represented by Disney. I think Snow mentioned like a interesting movie called The Strange World.
Yeah, Disney actually has a movie called Strange World. Surprise, surprise. Because obviously I didn't see any commercialing about it or any marketing. Well, but this is about, let's see, it's a world and where, I don't know how to describe the world, but because it's going to be a spoiler, but it's basically about this protagonist that's going on an adventure with his dad, and then it's canon that this protagonist is gay. Yeah. And it was clearly shown that he had a crush at the beginning of the film, and then I think at the end they were together. Yeah, but it wasn't the main plot, obviously. It's just a tangent thing. They just mentioned it in the start and the finish.
Oh, I like that. I really like that, actually. I hate it. I actually really hate it when like a story is just so focused on their sexuality, because like that's not, you know, my entire life. There's like
Exactly.
so much more things to it. But I guess, you know, especially a lot of older Disney stories, it's just like the princess falls in love and stuff like that. But like, I'm sure they have a life outside of that. So I really like that. Okay, maybe I'll check it out.
Would you like to see a movie about a princess falling in love with another princess, though, from Disney?
Okay, that would be great as well.
Or prince falling in love with a prince.
That's
Or like a trans Disney princess.
Yes. I think we definitely want to see, you know, more inclusion, instead of like they just kind of put it out there just for the idea of political correctness. And I feel like I would say Disney has a huge audience with parents and families that have different opinions towards the LGBTQ plus community. And I kind of do understand why Disney doesn't, you know, explicitly do that, because like there are a business after all, and I guess they definitely will face backlashes for inclusion and or even not inclusion. But I feel like if they include something, those people have like stronger opinions to say, oh, why do you do this and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'm very conflicted to this that I feel like they should include more diversity and stuff. But then I also understand where they're coming from, that they are very subtle and they are kind of scared to do that. So I was like very interested to know, what do you guys think about this?
The political correctness of Disney.
Yeah. Like including diverse characters. And it's maybe not necessarily just sexuality, but perhaps also like cultures or, race and stuff like that.
Oh, well, Disney, in recent years, I don't know when do you start calling it recent, but definitely there has been a lot more minority representation in any Disney content. And obviously some of it has been very controversial, like the Black Little Mermaid. Yeah. And I think what's funny is that Disney, while trying to promote these somewhat forced political correctness, is still kind of suppressing these minority representation things at the same time, like how they cut Owl House, which is, I have big beef with Disney for that.
Yeah, and the Owl House is an animation series about magical people.
It's about Luce the human going accidentally discovering the witch world, which is called the Boiling Isles, and then has an adventure and then gets a girlfriend. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like, I think Disney is trying to increase its scope of representation, so we can see, different culture represented in Wakanda, Moana, Big Hero 6. There's a Turning Red. There's a TV show called American Born Chinese on Disney Plus, and Coco, Soul, and Raya.
Stuff.
I love Soul.
So I can see how Disney is trying to increase the scope of representation, but also at the same time, they also kept representation in major media, for example, movies, very minimal. So especially a queer representation, very minimal. So then they could sort of cut out the scene, and it won't sort of affect the story at all when it's played in a more homophobic country. So for example, I think there's this scene in the live action Beauty and the Beast where Gaston's sort of sidekick sort of dances with a guy at the end. But that scene, I think, was cut in the Hong Kong viewing.
I see.
Yeah, it was on the radio, I remember. I remember I was a child, not a child, so like secondary school kid.
Yes.
And then I heard that on the radio as well. So I think if you think about it, then I feel like Hong Kong has we have come quite far, because this will never be on the radio right now. I don't think this will happen in Hong Kong as of right now. But maybe 8 years ago, it was a big deal back then. So yeah, and I feel like I really can resonate with the points that you guys made just now about the race controversy for the live action of The Little Mermaid, and I think now Snow White as well.
Yep.
And then I feel like now, and also what Joey mentioned about including different cultures, from Coco and Luca, all of those newer Disney films. I feel like regarding this, the race issue for Little Mermaid and Snow White, I feel like Disney only changed the race just for political correctness, because these are still stories that are set in in Denmark and in Germany. So there's still the stories, the cultures, and background of the story. It's still in European stories. So
and people tried to justify that the Little Mermaid is supposed to be black.
Okay.
Because of sunlight and whatever. But
interesting.
Yeah, I also want to mention in the Snow White live action, they tried to include the Mexican main character as Snow White, but at the same time, they're not hiring dwarf actors for being the seven dwarfs, and then they're using CGI instead, which is very weird. Like sometimes you have no idea what Disney is thinking. And you just don't understand.
Yeah, and calling them magical creatures. I have no problem with like race change or whatever, because like what we mentioned before this podcast, it's just a mermaid. But I do hope that they can have more, cultural appreciation for them, because apparently Disney tried to trademark Day of the Dead, like the Spanish term, for Coco in 2013. And
that's insane.
Yeah, it's like
it's stupid.
Yeah, it's a holiday that celebrates lives and memories of loved ones who has passed away in Mexico. And also, I think they successfully trademarked Hakuna Matata, a Swahili phrase, meaning no worries.
Which is sad.
Which is crazy, because I think this was applied in like August 1994, and the trademark was granted in 2003. And I feel like that's just a bit insane that they're including these stories that has more, cultural backgrounds, but then they're also doing this in this, capitalistic world.
It just kind of hints that they're only doing it for the money.
Yeah, and I mean, but that's kind of sad, but anyway.
I mean, it's hinting. They obviously don't say that. Let's believe not. Let's believe.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, although I want to remain hopeful, but I think that Disney, despite its overcorrecting, sort of trying to avoid mistakenly depict queer-coded characters, or like changing the race of the characters in live actions, I actually don't mind that, because I don't see any points in the live action whatsoever, because animated version is just so much better. So if they're being repetitive anyway, and they're like earning money from it anyway based on nostalgia, then why not trying to, give little girls or like little kids some representation that they might not have seen in like popular media.
Hi, this is Telia editing this podcast episode, and suddenly I had a thought upon listening back to Joey's point, and I thought I have to, say it right now, is that although I do agree that this can be an opportunity for Disney to include more diversity and inclusion and let young girls and kids to see themselves in popular media or children's content, I feel like we also, on the other hand, shouldn't give them like that much credit for representing, children or worldwide for like different races and cultures and ethnicities. Because I grew up in mainland China, I grew up in Beijing. Disney isn't the primary content that I consume as a child, because like I wasn't very good at English. I speak Mandarin, like it's my mother tongue. And I remember like my favorite series was 巴啦啦小魔仙, so it's like the Balala Fairies. It's shot in Shenzhen in mainland China. It has like a typical mainland China primary school setting, and like plots and interactions for like a Chinese children's family. So I see myself all the time as a kid in the content and media that I consume. And I just feel like, in a very like Western centric view, people talk about diversity and inclusion and like these Disney live actions and remakes, but like, girl, it's not the only media in the world. Like, this is so Western centric. Like, there's local media out there producing content for children that speaks the language of that particular place. And yeah, I remember like so vividly that this was also a point made by Bretman Rock when he was accepting an award, and he said this in like his speech about like representation, yet he also mentioned that he always sees himself as a child because his mother only watched like TV shows from the Philippines, which is, his ethnicity and his background. So like he always sees himself in those content. And I feel like, yeah, girl, what a great point. Like, I never felt like, oh no, I don't see myself in, these things that are being produced, because like there's always content out there for me as a child. And I feel like we just have to, let's not give Disney that much credit for like representing children around the entire world. I think they definitely do represent like maybe children from the United States, but like there's children around the world everywhere, and there's TV shows around the world everywhere made for children. So yeah, I just thought that was a point I wanted to add on, and let's move back to the episode.
So I think although Disney is sort of like, still being its capitalistic self, I think the future of queer representation and just any representation in Disney is a hopeful one, because in small medias, for example, in our house on Disney Plus, or just TV shows or like small named movie that's not played in the theater on its streaming service, there is apparently a lot more casual queer representation. And since I suppose streaming services is so big nowadays, and people with Disney Plus would just watch movies and consume media through its streaming services, and so I guess through this way Disney could not controversially introduce queer characters, queer villains, and just different representation. So I actually think this business model is beneficial. What do you guys think? I'm not sure.
Oh,
I think representation is good, but they're kind of doing it in the wrong place, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I personally would rather have I care more about the plot if we're talking about Disney-made stuff, and if they focus too much on political correctness, then it's going to stick out as something that doesn't fit into the story. If that happens, then I would rather they not do it.
Yeah, I echo with that on like the Mulan live action, because they cut out all the songs, which are the best part of the Mulan animated movie.
I didn't watch it. I forgot that Mulan had the live action. Actually.
No, I watched people watching it, and I did not enjoy it. It was just bland and generic.
Right. I feel like, as an adult, like looking at this, I can see the political correctness issues, I can see the queer coding issues, but then as a child, I definitely feel like I want to see myself in one of the characters, or want to relate to one of them, or want to be one of them. So I kind of do like agree with what Joe, you said, that I'm kind of hopeful for this. I feel like just to let the children see themselves or make them want to join in their group. I think that's going to be quite important for Disney. Yeah,
that's true.
I guess that's it for our discussion and podcast today.
Let's end with our theme song. It's a business after all. It's a business after all. It's a business after all. It's a big business.
Yeah,
Disney.
Hope you guys enjoy this episode on Disney villains. And we will plan out more exciting episodes and see you guys next time.
Feel free to suggest podcast topics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
How about the penguin?
Oh yeah, penguin.
Whoa.
Wave to the camera.
Yeah, I've been doing that.
Yay. That was really good.
Sorry for the impromptu theme song.
That scared me.
Because you said it's a business after all, and that made me think about it's a moral after all. It's a business after all. It's a business after all. It's a business after all. It's a big business.
Yeah.